I want to talk here about animal signs as when it comes to disasters. This is more animal internet type of information. For instance, there's this fish called an oarfish, okay? And if you find one of these things in shallow water, or if one washes up on the beach, it's a telltale sign that there's going to be an earthquake, and most likely a tidal wave. And this is a proven animal sign that is kind of real. It's legit. Okay, there's a history of animal signs from the Bible, the Book of Noah, for instance. Even with Christ, it was prophesied he'd become riding in on a donkey. This is a prophetic sign along with an animal sign, by an animal sign to an extent, partially. The skill of broadcasting omens or the future, kind of like the astrology of bird watching, called augury. This isn't what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about, I can tell you'll be the prince of Tartaria by the sign of this cumulonimbus cloud, because the cumulonimbus cloud went in two directions. It means your kingdom shall come forth and go in two directions and go forth. I'll have my 50 pieces of gold now, sir. You know, that's not what I'm talking about, but I just wanted to give you an example of what that might look like. So, what I'm talking about here is actually, it's almost like scientific common sense. Like, hey man, why are all those people stampeding? What are they running from? It's like, if you keep watching in the direction they're going and don't look back and be like, yo, where are they coming from? What are they running from? Look, that is not using your wisdom and your common sense, in that situation. But anyway, all this stuff can be defined by science and common sense at its core. But it might be considered a superstition. Or some people might be like, you're just a animist and a pagan witch trying to come in and deceive us with your voodoo. And it's like, no, buddy, that's not what I'm talking about here. But there may be some crypto, like paranormal stuff going on here. Like, it might come from some strange origins in some cases, but upon modern science and historical documentation of strange oddities, it come to find out these are patterns that happen, and they've been documented in the past already. Like, for instance, in China, they had they knew 4 different signs of an earthquake. I can only remember a few at the moment, but one of them was strange fish activity. Now, if all the fish start jumping out of the water for no reason, even to the point where they might even jump in your boat and they jump on land, it's probably an indicator that a tidal wave or a earthquake is going to happen, because the vibrations travel stronger in liquid because it's denser. So these fish are so sensitive. It'd be like if someone was stabbing us in the equilibrium with a toothbrush. You know what I'm saying? Like right there in our ear, touching the eardrum, going. Like, I'd imagine that's maybe what they sense when there's a geotectonic plate shift or a molten lava movement. Maybe they can feel the heat, or maybe it makes a noise only they can hear, or it's a vibration or a frequency that they can't stand, so they try to get away from it to the point where they're jumping out of the water. And I actually seen a video on it was either That's Impossible channel. That's a good channel for like crazy, weird stuff that is caught on camera these days. And especially, it's like the end times prophetic signs. They're not being broadcast on the news, And there's so many earthquakes, so many disasters, so many tidal waves, so many storms. That's another one, the Indian lore of the thunderbird. And they say that, on a side note of this thing, of the bird watching of the Indians, they would see these big giant birds come in preceding thunderstorms. Well, it just like could be, there's a lot of different kind of large birds that you would see. And sometimes I've actually seen that sometimes living out in the boondocks, you do kind of see the birds go by sometimes, and if you look often enough, you will notice something like the animals will let you know that a storm's coming in by what kind of birds you see out and about, or what the current of the air is like. If you see a lot of the vultures around who don't really flap their wings that much, and they just float on air currents, these type of things, you know what I'm saying? And you'll see predator birds come in too, because they go, that you can go longer with less, you know. So same thing with birds. There's the old, you know, if you're in the woods and it was just normal, you could hear the regular woods noise, and all of a sudden it goes really quiet, it means that a predator is around, or maybe you're perceived as a predator. But anyway, there is a response environmentally that can be interpreted by us, and we can learn to become fairly accurate. And then when you get two people together working together as a team, that's a force multiplier. And it's just the only way to do that is just go out and practice it, and you'll find out that you can. Like, I even seen a guy he was watching eagles to know where to fish, and it was using it pretty accurately. Animal internet. I seen the eagles out there flying around by the water. Maybe I should have went fishing there. You know what I'm saying? But you live, you learn. Another one is that, and if your pets just run away and disappear, like not just one pet from one house, but in the whole neighborhood, like if there was like, dang, 78% of the dogs all ran away on the same night, that's an animal sign that there's some kind of disaster coming, and the animals can sense it. And look, weirdly, this night, the dog, man, our dog Jack Wee, freaking, he got really sick and dizzy and disorientated for some reason, and he was taken to the vet. And there was a bunch of people that were bringing their dogs in at the same time, and they were having similar symptoms of this disorientation. And come to find out, there was some kind of solar activity going on, space activity, during that same time parameter. And I wonder if the dog sensed it. Like, for instance, you can tell it's a full moon if you're a night person and you have cats or dogs even. You'll notice they'll wake up, like, they'll all be, like, acting really goofy and mischievous at 3 in the morning, like, on a full moon especially. Like, and it's like there's something they can feel or hear that is bothering them enough that it wakes them all up, and then they start moving around and just going about. It's almost as if they're on some kind of, like one of those timers you use for growing plants. It'll be like 12 hours on, 12 hours off, or, you know, just, but anyway, you can, and people too, you'll be like, man, what the frick is this person's problem, man? Why will they just not stop today, man? They just, and then come to find out, that night, you're getting beamed with light from the sky, and you look up and it's a full moon, and then it makes total sense why the people got hijacked with temporary lunacy. And that this is a real effect on people, and it's the more dumbed down the person is, the more it affects them. And then when you say something to them like, man, dude, you know it's a full moon, why are you being so crazy? Like, look, it'd be like they would like dismiss it, and then they would attack you worse. So it's kind of like when you cast your pearls before the swine, they rend you with their teeth, kind of a thing. So it's like, it makes it even worse because the person's willingly ignorant and they're in agreement with it because they don't care about acknowledging it enough to, like, hey, maybe you are just being so negative because it's a full moon and you're being moody and emotional, you know. pets running all the way. I think maybe the birds might leave too, or if you have a whole bunch of birds in another spot, it's because they were displaced because of either some kind of storm, but here we're trying to stick to earthquake, especially, or volcano eruption, because a volcano eruption also is earthquake-ish. But if you get a big enough rainstorm, like a thunderbird, look, hey, I've watched mountains move because they've like liquefracted just from the rain, just from the intense monsoonage and displacement of water. I see whole mountains move, like on these freaking end times videos. And you got these fires in Australia. Well, where do you think all those birds that are over there? They're flying to Asia now. You know what I'm saying? And once the shizzle cools down and the stuff starts to, come back, stuff will migrate back there. I mean, it's already an island. Everything there probably, well, maybe not. Maybe it's been that way since it split off the main continents. But either way, here's another thing. What was the other one? The animals run away. And this also, that's the other one. Strange. Like, look, if you see a large group of all animals running away, that's also a sign that there's a disaster. It's a disaster. It's an earthquake. Like, look, if you seen all the deers together, like 100 deep, running in a straight line, and they do this. They do this in Africa. They used to do this up in Alaska and Antarctica. A bunch of deer meet up and they all run a big route together and hang out during the hard months, and then split up in the spring to go reproduce and just frolic. And animals do this. Like, so look, the programming's in them. It'd be the same thing like if everyone died and the cows eventually, the ones that were willing to survive, would eventually they turn back into freaking buffaloes again, or yaks or something. They'd be running around here because without the humans there, with the artificial easiness, their genetic traits to survive would kick back in. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, this happened in Yellowstone, where there's a mass stampede migration of a bunch of animals, and this is also on a caldera, which is high thermo geo earthquake volcanic activity. You know what I'm saying? And then so we had the fish jumping out the water into the boats. Seen a video of that. Your pets taking off. Strained. So I mean, some of these signs kind of overlap, but they're just examples of things that to look for. Strange animals running away. Fish jumping out of the water. Stampedes of native animals. Like horses. They said, like, during earthquakes, all their horses would run away. Like all the army's horses. Like, especially out there in Mongolia territory, where they used to really be nomadic cavalry types, I'd imagine these people would have seen this quite a lot, over their vast history. But it's interesting. This is more further credence to what I've already discovered, this animal internet thing, where it's kind of like the animals are constantly in communication, kind of conveying information to one another, and kind of in the symbiosis. And if you know how to interpret the information, you can plug in too, and you can become part of it. Like, look, in a way. So it's a fun hobby, and also a quest to master this skill of learning how to interpret the animal on the internet. But I mean, back in the day, people that did that were just called trackers. You know what I'm saying? And like scouts and stuff like that. But anyway, man, talk to you later.